Welcome to this video. Thanks for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness, the highest levels of love light. I'm sitting in a stoplight right now, so I am going to be doing a light language video, hopefully outdoors, depending on the weather, just connecting with Mother Earth, so I'll be doing that very soon. I've been doing a lot of videos in my car because I've been doing a lot of traveling. I just left a session that I had with somebody, a beautiful starseed, light worker, human. I like to use those words interchangeably because we are all light workers from one perspective if we choose to be, if we are consciously co-creating or coming from a space of love or coming from a place of how may I serve. And there are so many of us. Sorry, I just saw somebody run a red light. Crazy drivers. All right, speaking of crazy, the energies that are coming in, from my perspective, they feel very blissful. I have so many synchronicities happening that I have yet to unpackage all of them, so to speak. Packages of information, of memory that is surfacing, of dreams that I've had, and putting together the puzzle pieces and the dots that some of my brothers and sisters are helping with. They bring something up. It happens to be something I dreamed about 6 months ago that I never quite went back or revisited to kind of see why I had dreamed about that, and then it triggers a memory. Oh yeah, I dreamed about that. Why is that coming up for me again? Memories of other lifetimes, memories of relationships with other people, friendships. Lots of energy moving through. We might be feeling guided to get more just let it flow. Cough, burp, move, dance, move it through. It doesn't have to sit and be stagnant. Shifts are happening a lot faster than usual, which I've talked about that a lot. So I'm going to go into flow in just a little bit. I had a client of mine ask, how do you know? You said you know. How do you know? And how do we know? How do we tap into our claircognizance, our clairaudience, our clairvoyance, So I just want to share, from my perspective, a knowing is a deep inner resonance. You just feel it in your bones. It's just a yes. You just know. Sometimes a knowing is that we have a feeling about something, and then other things show up in the form of synchronicity, in the form of life experiences that further reinforce the knowing. Sometimes, so I want to just talk a little bit about clairvoyance. For me, I'm using all of my senses when I get a knowing. It can be a feeling, it can be a thought, it can be a yes in my body, it can be a sign or a symbol. So we have more than just one sense, right? It's not just that we hear it or see it or smell it or feel it think about all of our five senses. We use our sense of taste, we use our sense of smell, we use our sense of touch, our hearing, our sight, and they all oftentimes work together more than we recognize. So when we touch something, we kind of know what it is, right? So that's a form of a sense that we are using to then interact with our body, which then interacts with our knowingness because of the experience that we've had of touching that object before, such as the steering wheel. It's a long light. I'm sitting here looking at lots of traffic. Anyways, so oftentimes I work with people, and I've brought this up in previous videos, but I think it's important to revisit. And I can tell that who I'm working with is very intuitive, or they're getting messages. Everybody's getting messages usually. Everybody usually. Many people are getting messages, and they're just not tuning into them. So I'll talk about that in just a minute maybe. But the bigger question is, how do you know if you're getting messages? And unless you sit with yourself and you get to know yourself, you will not know that you're getting messages. So it takes a certain amount of habit. It takes a certain amount of practice. It takes a certain amount of discipline in order to tap into that sometimes, especially if we're not used to doing that. For some people, it just comes naturally, and they've always been open to it, and they've always honored that, and they've just known. So I'm being invited to invite everybody to start asking yourself, how do I know? Is it a feeling in my body? Am I getting lots of signs and symbols? And if you're not getting any signs or symbols, am I asking any questions? Am I asking the right questions? What kind of questions am I asking? Not that there's a wrong or a right, but can I shift my questions a little bit so that it can be more broad and it's not so narrow about, I need this answer in this way from this source, and it looks like this and it sounds like this, therefore it is this. It doesn't work that way. Multidimensionality uses symbols, all of our senses, to then filter through our filtration system to essentially narrow from one perspective down the answer to our question, if we have one. If we're not asking questions, we're not going to necessarily be getting any answers. On the flip side, if we're not open to the spaciousness of just allowing and not questioning everything, we may not get answers either. There's a balance. Sometimes it's just letting go and allowing whatever is available to me to flow in, to show me what I need to know or see or feel in this now moment. Sometimes that is the question. What am I missing? Am I missing anything? Is there something I should be focusing on that would help me in my expansion? I am open and receptive to receiving information that will assist me in my own knowingness. So that was an open-ended example of how we can ask a question. So our vision or our sight, our clairvoyancy, so to speak, our ability to see is not necessarily based on our sight. If I see something, it doesn't necessarily literally mean I'm seeing it with my eyes or hear. Figuratively, I can be seeing it through my senses. How does a blind person see? They don't see with their eyes, they see with their other senses. So, sight is just a way to describe pixels, colors, vibrations, photonic light. Hearing is just a way to describe sound, which is resonance, frequency, and vibration. All of that is resonance, frequency, and vibration. So technically, we can see without having to see with our eyes. We can hear without having to hear with our ears. And I'm speaking more along the realms of the intuitive world right now, not necessarily the physical, which people have been taught to see without their eyes. Dan Winters has talked about this before. There's schools where children go to school and learn how to see without their eyes. It is possible. How do they do that? It's the same way we use our intuition. We are seeing through all of our other senses, which can come in the form of imagination, thought, sound, picture. So if you close your eyes and you think of a memory, you don't just think of the picture of the memory. So if you have, let's say it's a negative memory, for example, and you have an experience where your dad yelled at you this one time because you broke a lamp. You have the memory, perhaps, of you breaking the lamp and your dad yelling at you. You have the memory of his voice and how it sounded. You have the memory of the incident and how you felt. So now it's not just a picture. You have all the senses that that experience has connected to it, which holds within it a resonance or a frequency that then might be a picture, but it's when you think of that memory or when it comes to you, you're not seeing it right in front of you. It's not there in front of me while I drive. However, it's there in my mind, or that wouldn't even necessarily be. It's somewhere connected to me somehow. Out there, bringing it in here, in my brain, wherever we want to label it as being from. Attached to a resonance, attached to an experience, attached to a light exchange of sound and resonance, attached, creating a feeling associated with an emotion or vice versa, and a chemical reaction. All of this is all at once happening now. Yet this memory of me breaking a lamp and my dad being mad at me, for example, happened when I was 10. Yet I can be there right now. Well, technically then I'm time traveling. And we're doing that throughout the day, all day long. And that's a whole other video, because oftentimes we have memories that we hold on to in our bodies. And until we've integrated those, they can be stored and they hold information. I'm just going to go into it. So I just did a session. I had some beautiful energy work with a friend and client and light worker, and she had a memory attached to something, an energy that we cleared, so to speak, or that we changed the harmonic resonance around. And as we were moving this energy around, this memory came up of her childhood experience, very specific. And when that comes up, it actually can help you go back to that feeling that then created and established a resonance in the body. And that technically is a packet of information, because from that one memory, attached to that were associations, beliefs, and feelings that then created other associations, feelings, beliefs, attachments, entanglements around that particular memory experience. I could go on and on. So it's all energy. We're moving this energy around, or we're hanging on to it and not moving it around. I am bringing this up because this is how intuition works. Same way. We are connecting to this quantum realm, because a memory or something that happened when you were 10 is not happening right now because I'm remembering it, because now I'm the age I am now, but it is happening now. And that is a form of quantum entanglement. That is a form of connecting to a past reality system, that somehow that piece of information emotions, light particle, is stored within my knowingness. Now I'm sharing it in this way because it's multidimensional, and some people will hear it and it'll make perfect sense, and other people will get a piece of this and go, oh, okay, I get that, and it's all good. So when we are working intuitively, we're using all of those. For some people, their intuition or their third eye or is their body. Their, clairsentient, I believe, right? They feel. And because of that feeling, they are then able to see, let's say, for example, what is going on in someone else's body. I feel that you may have some womb issues because of, and they may not know why. The energy worker or you as a person may not know why you're feeling this, but you can intuitively say, you know what, I'm feeling as I'm doing Reiki with you, pain in my lower back, or I'm feeling in your body this heat discharge, and we might feel the color orange and not know how to explain it, but because we're feeling orange, which could actually be something we're seeing, but we don't realize it because it's a feeling about what we think we're seeing. You guys, I'm sharing it in this way because it isn't always black and white. People think that intuition is like, here you go, here it is. It isn't always like that. For some people it is. But for most of us, it takes work to not work. It takes practice to not force things and to get in tune and know thyself. So for some people it's feeling, and I'm sharing this because there's people out there going, I do feel that when I work with other people. I didn't know that's what was going on, or I feel that in myself and I didn't recognize. Now this video isn't necessarily about if you are feeling it in your body. Obviously, there are things that you can do, boundaries that you can create, ways that you can not feel it in your body, or you don't want to hold on to it, is all I'm saying. And that's when I refer a lot to Green Mile. You just John Coffee it out. And that might be, one teacher might say, well, that's not creating boundaries, and then you're taking on their stuff. But you know what? I'm at that stage where it's everybody's got their own style. There is no wrong or right from my perspective. It's all about our own journey. So some people, that's how they work, and it works great, and they clear that energy by coughing or burping, which I do that too. Or it moves out or moves into the earth. However we want to look at it. Some people say, well, you don't want to put it into the earth. You want to return it to source. Other people give it to earth. I give it to source. I used to give it to the earth. I would send it down through my feet into the earth, but now I send it up into return to source. Some people say, everybody's got their own style, their own. I'm not here to say this is wrong or right. Find your own way. But what I am sharing for this purpose is so that people can recognize that they are doing this already, perhaps. What else is, how do you know? Sometimes you do see it. Some people work with others and they see a picture, or they see the color orange, or they'll see their father, a man. Let's say I'm working with someone and I'll see a man yelling at who I'm working with, and I'll see the color red. And then now I'm going to separate this a little bit. And then I might be guided to ask, which, by the way, I'm being guided to ask. When I say I'm being guided to ask, that is another form, another deeper layer of intuition. So some people might see the picture and go, I'm seeing a man yelling at you, and I'm seeing the color red. Does that mean anything to you? And that would just be asking about what they're seeing. But the deeper knowing is, do I ask about this? Is this something I should bring up? Or is this something that I should just allow to move through them as I am aware of this? Because sometimes I'll be guided, I'll know not to bring it up. And then at the end of the session, they might bring it up. I might ask, are you feeling any memories come up right now? Sometimes I'm guided not to ask them that because I don't want to pull them out of the experience that they're having. Because sometimes it isn't about talking about it. Sometimes it's just about feeling whatever's coming up and not attaching it to a particular memory. I know that it's attached to a particular memory, and sometimes if they're ready to discuss it, they'll ask me, what did you see? And at that moment, then I may be guided to tell them. How am I guided to tell them? Sometimes I will know because it'll feel open and I'll be really ready to say it, or I'll just say, I'll hear, tell this to them. They need to know this. And that's the hearing, the clairaudient. Sometimes I'm guided not to say anything at all. And then afterwards, they'll say, I was seeing a clear picture of my father yelling at me when you had your hands over my abdomen. And I won't say anything because I don't need to be validated. It's not my experience, it's their experience when I'm working with the client. So I'm sharing all of this because this does sometimes involve discernment. It sometimes involves, okay, so all of those examples are using all of our senses. Other times, back to this seeing this going on, that might be a picture that flashes in my head. Other times, I might feel it more in my imagination. What is it that I would be feeling right now if I were to associate a feeling with this area of the body? You guys, I could go on and on and on about all of the ways that we can utilize all of our senses for healing, for communication, for activation. We're all doing this. I'm doing my best to utilize all of my capacities. Some people taste it. What's that expression? It just doesn't taste right? Some people smell it. I'm smelling like that, what is that Stephen King book, The Shining? He smelled oranges. Some people see orange. So some people see symbols. Some people make sounds, and then that brings through a vibration. They're guided to just make a sound, because that sound is the voice, is the technology, is the frequency tuning fork. There is no, from myself, from my own perspective, that's just the way I feel that many of us are activating to these higher levels of healing modalities. I work with a lot of healers because many of us as healers are activators for other healers. We're all activators whether we recognize it or not really, but some of us are more aware of it, I could say. So this was a question that I felt was really important. More and more people are opening up to these abilities and they're just not sure, they don't think they have them. But then when I work with them and point out, and I could say, well, you're more claircognizant. I will get that message sometimes and I'll go, do you ever have these thoughts? So as what I do, sometimes I tap into their energies and I can feel where their strengths are. Other times, I'm guided to ask them questions so they can feel where their strengths are, even though I might know what their strengths are. You see where I'm going with this? There's so many things and so many ways that we are fully coming into this expansion. And the more we play with this and the more open we are to this, the more we expand. So the biggest message I have in this video is play and recognize that if you're not sure how you know, start asking yourself that question. How do I know? Show me. Ask for signs. Sometimes you'll get over and over again the same car in front of you, the same license plate in front of you. You'll get the same word that's brought into your awareness, which will guide you to go to that place or look something up or be aware of something. And I want to really, as I end this on this note, remind everybody that that is a gift. I want to remind everybody that this is a magical in the mundane. I keep saying that. Magical in the mundane. I get quite frequently, I'll work with someone and they will go, well, I'm not seeing any of that, or I'm not magical, or I don't get any of those synchronicities, or that doesn't happen for me. And I'm here to say that it's just because you're not paying attention, or because there's other inner work that needs to happen, and it just depends on the person. So recognizing that sometimes it does require us doing a cleanse. Sometimes it does require us meditating more. Sometimes it does require us having more self-care and just focusing on the little things. Oh, that's a butterfly that just went by, and not taking it for granted. I wonder what butterfly means. Oh, that's the third. All the cars next to me are white. All of them are white. Every car I've seen today is white. I wonder what that color represents. That seems so silly, and it seems very petty to some people. That's where it starts, oftentimes. This leads back to the beginning of this video when I was saying, how do you know? Are you using your senses? What is clairvoyance? It's using all of those senses. It isn't just having a picture show up for you, because that is one form of intuition. There are so many other forms of intuition, information. So we're really being invited to stop limiting ourselves on how we receive the information. And as soon as we start opening up to that, it then, we could say, tells the universe, I'm ready for more. Or it says, I am paying attention. Because there is this idea that if we don't use it, we lose it. I would not necessarily say that it goes away, but it certainly hides from us because it's not being fed from one perspective. So if we're feeding it, giving value to it, and it increases we start to recognize magic is in everything, it feeds that inner child. It feeds the inner wisdom, and it takes us out of this need to see it, to believe it. And we begin believing it and then seeing it. And we see it through our smell, our taste, our touch, through sound, through imagination, through thoughts, through the television, through the animals that show up in our lives, through somebody we talk with, and spirit working through them to give us a message that's relevant for them and for us. It moves in all things. So that was the biggest message I wanted to share based after the session that I had. Because I think a lot of people are looking too hard. They're looking for this big magical event, and it's already been tons of magical little events that have never been quite put together. They haven't quite recognized that that's what's been going on. Then on the flip side, I also feel guided to add I just know that this is relevant and important because I hear, don't forget to add this. We might have that magical thing happen. I've talked about this before. It's not going to show up like that every single time necessarily. Just because the fireworks go off doesn't mean that it's going to look like that every single time. Because sometimes it is in the subtleties. Because if everything was in our face and obvious, we wouldn't hone in on all of our senses. We would be overdeveloped in one area and underdeveloped in another area, which is what happens to a lot of people. If you've ever met someone that's super smart and super logical, but they just don't have any common sense. I don't know anyone like that, do you? Or they don't use their intuition at all. But on the flip side, someone who's super spiritual and super intuitive and can't quite operate or function logically at all, and they have no common sense. I really don't know anybody like that. They can't ground, they're all over the place. It really is, that's a prime example of over-stimulating one area and not being able to balance it out in other areas. And there's nothing wrong with either of those. It's just that the way that I teach or the way that I share is based on my own experience. And what I'm being shown is that it's really valuable to be able to utilize all of our senses and to connect in a myriad, a multitude, multidimensional ways. And people are getting stuck, focused because they think they're supposed to be getting fireworks all the time. So it could go in either direction. Last but not least, how do I know? Sometimes you just know, and you can't explain it, and you can't put words, but that's called intuition nonetheless, and we don't have to label it. And that's okay too. So recognizing that it's okay just to know and not know how you know is fine. Sometimes it's a feeling in the gut. Sometimes it's a remembrance that I think I might have done this before. And I'm pretty sure the last time I did this happened. But I don't know how I know that. There's, again, layer after layer after layer. So don't be afraid to use your own intuition in your own way and play with it. And you'd be surprised at what evolves, expands from there. And I'm hearing clairaudiently words, but also through so I'm sharing it how I'm doing it so that because I'm trying to work kind of as a teacher in that